Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Better Computer. My name is Matt, and if you follow the channel, you probably have a good idea that I'm an iPhone guy. I like the iPhone, I like iOS. I have issues with Apple's policies and some things, but on the whole, I think iOS is an awesome platform, and it has the apps that I want to use. But what if I decided one day to switch to Android? What would I do? And so I've actually been using an Android phone for the last couple weeks as my main device. This is the Pixel 7, so a couple years old, but still a thoroughly modern phone that feels quite good to use. And I gave it a real shot. So I basically tried to recreate what I do on my iPhone on the Pixel, and I wanted to go over how that's gone and what apps I used to get it done. So if on the off chance you are looking to consider a switch from iOS to Android, what it might look like, how it might go, and yeah, let's just jump into it. I'll show you what I'm doing on my Android phone. All right, so here we are on my Android phone, and I'm going to put it side by side with my iPhone home screen so you can get an idea for what I'm doing, what I'm trying to mirror. And basically, I'm using the Pixel launcher on my phone. I could use a different launcher. I like the Pixel launcher. I like some of the options it gives me. And the first thing you're going to notice is that I am using themed icons here. This is really nice on Android. I really like how this works. You can see I have kind of a green wallpaper. It's actually one of their live wallpapers. I think it's called Living Universe, what they call these. If I actually go into my wallpaper settings, let's see, go to more wallpapers. Yeah, Living Universe. So they have these kind of live wallpapers that are animated. And so if we go back to my home screen, you can actually see, if you look really closely, the clouds are moving a little, the clouds are moving a little bit. There's cars driving down the road. It's very subtle. You don't notice it just day to day, but it is kind of cool when you look closer and are like, oh, this is actually doing something. That's kind of cool. So again, not the biggest deal in the world, but something that I generally like. But yeah, I'm theming the icons to match this background. And if I changed my wallpaper, I could change the icons. How that works is you basically go to wallpaper and style, and there are all these colors here where you can change the color theming. So these are based on the wallpaper that you've got. It's going to change how they look. And if you don't like any of those, you can hit the three dots and you can go to more auto-suggested ones. You can see they're mostly green here. If you want a dark theme, you can toggle that, and that's going to do a dark background on a lot of things. And if you just want to pick a random color, let's say I want yellow actually, you can do that. You have the ability to do that to whatever you'd like it to be. So that's pretty cool. If I go ahead and switch to, say, this one, you're going to see the options change. Now we get kind of blue as an option. And yeah, there's just going to be different suggested color schemes based on the wallpaper. So that's pretty rad. I'm going to go ahead and go back to this one because this is my favorite. I'm going to go to the default because I think that actually just looks really good. So if you want to turn these themed icons off, of course, you can do that as well. It'll just be normal icons. And actually, I am going to turn that off for the rest of this video just so you can see the actual icons for these. But just know that I do use the themed ones typically. You can adjust the color contrast to be more or less significant. And you can change the app grid. So I have 5x5. If you wanted a more iPhone-like experience, you could do 4x5 or whatever. I like 5x5. I like the additional kind of space it gives me. So let's go back to the home screen and talk about the rest. So up at the top, we have the date that's showing the date. I really actually find this inconvenient. I wish I could get rid of this. I don't want this here. I don't need the date at all times. As far as I can tell in the Pixel launcher, you cannot get rid of this, which is frustrating. Tapping it takes you to your calendar app, whatever you have set as your default. Below that, I have the weather widget. So this is the Pixel weather widget. If I make it larger, this is actually what I would typically do, but this shows my location. It's going to be a pain to mask that the whole video. So I'm actually just showing the smaller one. But you can see a pretty nice widget that looks really good, in my opinion. But I'm going to minimize it for the rest of this video. Tapping that takes you into the app, the Pixel weather app. But let's get to the apps itself. I'm going to start in the dock. I'm actually going to go upwards. So one thing I really like about the Pixel launcher is that it assumes you're going to be using Google services. And a big part of Google, of course, is searching. And so you can just tap to instantly start a search. This is also where you can launch apps. So if you wanted to launch, say, Reader, for example, my Readwise Reader, which I don't have on the homepage, but that's here. You launch it there, just like launching apps with search on an iPhone. But you can also do Google searches from here. Additionally, you can immediately jump into a voice search or a Google Lens search. So let's actually see how this works. I'm going to do Google Lens. We're going to try to take a picture. it's going to want me to open the camera. There we go. We're going to take a picture of this coffee cup, and you know what? That is actually it. A weird coffee person brain mug. That is, let's see, it's doing a search. It's opening in Chrome, and yeah, that's the mug. So I don't use this very often, but it can be helpful. And if you do use it quite often, then great. It's right there on the home screen. So I do like that. I do find myself searching for things on my phone relatively often, and just having a search box at the bottom of my home screen makes a lot of sense to me. Next up, we have Messages, which is not super exciting. It's just Google Messages. Obviously, it's for messaging people. Next up, I have Superhuman. And oh boy, I made a video about Superhuman recently. I said I probably wasn't going to keep the subscription. I haven't canceled the subscription yet. I can't bring myself to get rid of it, even though it's super expensive. I would like not to. This is where I'm going to start getting in trouble on this video. I cannot find an email app that I really enjoy on Android. I struggle with that on iOS as well. And Superhuman is as close as I've gotten, and it's definitely as close as I've gotten on Android. The other apps just don't do it, and I am not justifying the cost necessarily. I understand the cost is crazy, but if you're just looking for the best, Superhuman scratches the itch best for me. We can just go in there and you can see some of the emails. It's nice. It's good. I like it. Different split inboxes. I made a whole video about this if you want to learn more about Superhuman. Next up is YouTube. I like watching YouTube on my phone. I like triaging, browsing my subscriptions and seeing what people have posted. So if we go to the subscriptions page, I can just see recent videos. I can add them to my queue. Let's say I want to add this one, add to watch later. Awesome. I also have notifications set up, and on Android, notifications from the YouTube app are great because one of the actions you can take is to add it to your watch later queue straight from the notification, which is awesome. So if you've rung the bell on any YouTube channel, you can see those notifications come in, add them to your watch later, and then not even jump into the app. Really like that. Apple Music. Apple Music is my my music app of choice. You can see some of the recent things I've added to my collection. If you want to go into the Tycho album, it's just Apple Music, and it's actually pretty good. Let's see, does this one have, I don't think it's going to load. Yeah, that one doesn't have the full screen. But if you like, let's do this one. This one might have, yeah, this has got the full screen. It really is the full Apple Music experience. And it does like the full animated artwork and everything. So kudos to whoever at Apple works on Apple Music for Android, because they do keep it up to date quite well with the changes that come along with the service. So that's the one that I happen to use on Android. Next up is Pocket Cast. Pocket Cast is not necessarily my favorite podcast app, but it's a very good podcast app. And I think it's really, really awesome. And I love that it's available on every platform and works the same across all platforms. It's awesome. It's really cool. If I go into this one of the things I like that they've added recently is the ability to do clip sharing. So if I'm listening to an episode and I want to share a clip of the podcast on social media or something, I go to share episode, I hit clip, and then there's basically a way for me to just kind of play the episode, the stuff I just recently kind of listened to. I can move the start and stop playheads wherever I want, and I can export it as a video. I can share that wherever I'd like. There's a vertical video, a horizontal video, a square video, and just an MP3 file if that's what you'd want as well. So this is something that Overcast has had for years, Castro has had for a long time, and I'm really happy to see Pocket Cast add it because it's one thing that I use relatively frequently, actually. So, but other than that, I should maybe do a deep dive into Pocket Cast. Pocket Cast is such a full-featured and very well-made podcast client. Overcast has my heart, but Pocket Cast is very, very good. And if you're using that, I don't blame you at all. And it's awesome that it's on Android. Moving up another row, we have Chrome. Goes without saying, it's just the default browser, works well, and is what I use. There's no Safari, there's no Arc or anything, so I'm using Chrome. Then I have Synology Photos, and I think most people would use Google Photos, but what I've actually done, I made a video again recently about Synology and how I'm using Synology to kind of use Synology Photos as my personal photos backup. And what I've done basically is I have gone into this, and much like I did on my iPad to automatically sync my photos, you can see here's some recent photos. If I go into more and then photo backup, I do have this set up to backup things that go into Google Photos. So anytime I take a picture with the camera or take a screenshot, Synology Photos is automatically grabbing it within a few minutes and uploading it to my network attached storage at home, and I have a copy of that photo. For me, this is awesome. This is obviously not the mainstream use case. I think most people just use Google Photos, and that's fine. But yeah, it's really nice that that works for me, and it helps me kind of with my cross operating system life that I live. Next up, we have Inoreader. And Inoreader is kind of an interesting one because on my iPhone, I have Reader as my RSS app. And Reader is unbelievably fantastic. It's such a good RSS app. It is perfect for my needs. I love it. I adore it. Inoreader is my backend sync service that I use to make sure that all my articles and stuff get synced and everything nicely, and it integrates into Reader. So that's how Reader is syncing. But there's no Reader on Android, and I've tried so many RSS apps on Android. I really don't love any of them, and I don't love Inoreader either, but it's functional and it works and it has notifications, and I'm already using it to sync everything, so it's not like I have to pay anything extra. It does voice to text or text to voice, so I can listen to articles if I want. It's got some good stuff. It's actually a quite good and full-featured app for kind of one of these RSS services. It's not my favorite, but as is often the case, unfortunately for me on Android, I'm using not my favorite app because my favorite app just isn't available. My favorite app is iOS only. So that's a thing. That's going to get me in trouble, but it is what it is. Then I have my two social media platforms of choice. I have Threads and Mastodon. Threads, exactly the same as iOS. I'm using just the official app because that's the only app you can use to actually do this, and that's fine. And on Mastodon, this one is actually kind of a bummer. I think the Mastodon app for Android is pretty good. My big issue with it is it doesn't do timeline sync. So if I'm reading and then I go to another device, or if I I'm reading here and then I come back a couple hours later, it doesn't just load all of my posts that have come in since then. It loads like the 20 most recent ones, and it's really hard to see more than that. So I actually am pretty annoyed by that. You will notice it's tinted green, which is the tint color that Material U, which we saw kind of on the lock screen or the home screen customization page where I could customize the icons. This green is being pulled from my wallpaper. If I wanted to have a different color theme, or if I had a different wallpaper, this would be a different color. So what I do like about this app is it's one of the, unfortunately, relatively rare third-party apps that integrates with Material U fully and themes the app to look like what you've chosen your system to look like. So yeah, that's my home screen. I don't know if there's anything else of interest here, really. If I go onto the second page, which is just kind of a random collection of apps, I have Synology Drive there. I have Megalodon, which is another Mastodon client that is kind of forked. As you can see, it looks basically exactly the same as the official app, but it's forked from that app and has some more features I haven't really dug into too much. The New York Times Games app, I do like to do the crossword. I like to do Wordle. I don't want notifications. One thing I will say is that if I go into this and go into the crossword, the keyboard, the in-game keyboard, like the custom keyboard they use, is not as good as the iOS one. There's no haptic feedback that I can tell, and it's just laggier and is just very unsatisfying to use, unfortunately. So I find that to be a really frustrating thing about the Android version of this app. I have Claude installed, Omnivore. Omnivore is a really good read later app that's totally free. It has great voice to text. Made a video about that. Tried to put that below. YouTube Studio, Instagram, Reddit, Reader, Readwise Reader. I do use Readwise Reader quite a bit to read my things that I've saved for later. And yeah, works actually quite well as feature parity with the iOS app. And yeah, it's kind of a universal app that they've made in the first place, and that kind of makes it just work pretty consistently everywhere. I have Obsidian, which is an issue because I sync most of my stuff over iCloud. I'm trying to find a more universal way to do that so I can sync more nicely to Android as well. Discord, Letterboxd, 1Password, these all kind of work great. And that's what I've got going on my Pixel phone. Again, there's the home screen, and I do like the customization. I like the extra wallpaper options that I have. Actually, if I can show something weird, this is like a clean install of Android from just a few weeks ago. I did a clean install, and if I go to my wallpaper styles and I say oh, show me more wallpapers, they actually have Liverpool and Arsenal collections here, which are I don't know. It's weird to me that they would have like these kind of opinionated things. And if I go into Arsenal, like this is a wallpaper I can set, and like, okay, but like what are the odds? Like how many people are Arsenal fans that want this as their default wallpaper? It's funny to me that these are built into the system, but some of these are really nice. I've always been a fan of the where are they? These cityscapes wallpapers. These are really, really nice. There's quite a few of them. They look pretty good. And so, yeah, if we go with something like totally different, like let's go with this very blue one. Let's go ahead and set the wallpaper, set it. And it's going to take a second to set that. There we go. And now everything is going to be hinting towards blue. So if we theme the icons, let's go back to the home screen. You can see blue icons. If we go into Mastodon, this now has a subtle blue tint instead of a subtle green tint. So again, the theming across the system, I think, is really cool. So yeah, that's it. That's a quick look at my Android home screen. This is what I would do if I was moving to Android full time. And yeah, let me know in the comments what I've gone horribly wrong. I'm sure if you're an Android fan, you're looking at this and you're like, oh my God, he's really screwed it up. But I do certain things on my phone, and this is what a relatively smooth transition to Android would look like for me. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you here next time. Bye-bye.